She's,
Your hair, Brad.
you know.
I thought that fun. I saw that. I'm like, oh, see.
I like the pirate.
Pirate look was not it. Just to tell you.
Oh, you should worry about it when everybody hears means that they don't know. Yeah. My, SAC. Not now, like.
Just tell me.
Yeah.
It seems like, I went to the
The video.
Yeah, you're.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you see me go like this
then I
and
know.
then start typing.
We should have had Alexa sit here.
Yes, I can't even access that slide. Hers is so large, I've got so much.
Ready when you are, Ann.
Okay. Everybody ready? Okay. Okay, welcome everyone to our Royce City Council, my very first work session. So today's March 17th, and we want to recognize Council Member Jackson, Council Member Holbert, Council Member Spar, Council Member Wilson, and Council Member Scadden. Saxton. See how many times did Bob mess that up? Saxton. Jeez, can't believe that I said that. So just a reminder, there's no public comment period today. This is a work session and it's just discussion, and people can watch it on YouTube or live. So today our focus is on the fiscal year 2026 and 2027 COLA and the wage study. Please be mindful that this is only a discussion item and our conversation needs to reflect on that topic, even though I know there's lots of things I want to talk about, but today we only are going to talk about this. So now it's time to start our discussion on this. And Brian, since you're the one that kind of started us off and you're the reason we're here, do you want to start us off on this discussion and why this is important to you?
Okay. Pros and cons. First, the pros. I talked to Matt. I felt like when the state stepped in and eliminated the 28% increase, that we should restore to that budget the 2.5% COLA that was to go to the employees. 162, I think. Roughly, okay. The reason that I felt like we should do this was, I felt kind of guilty that you employees got slapped the hardest with the state's decision. And I also believe that we've only got a quarter of 26 left, that we could use some fund reserves for this year. Now everybody's going to say, wait a minute though, Brian, that obligates us next year. And it does, to about 18% for a tax increase for 27. But I want to point out that an 18% is still 11% lower than what we had initially proposed. So, in trying to add off that historic high, I thought, let's break it down. Let's get the employees back on the COLA, and let's hope that sales tax revenues come in to where we can mitigate that 18% call. If we don't put back in the COLA, there's going to be 15 to 20 people that will not receive the merit. So they'll receive nothing because they're at their top step. Am I Close?
Pretty accurate, yeah.
Okay. So I thought, let's meet, let's talk. I don't see the disadvantage of adding the 2.5. I think it helps morale. It lets the employees know we haven't forgotten about them. And we do it across the board, so there's no animosity between the departments. And yes, I almost thought up this all by myself. Any questions?
Those are all your pros, and your only con is basically that we'll just have to have a tax increase next
We
year.
will have to have some tax increase.
Right.
Doesn't need to be an 18, because we might have a great sales tax revenue. And we can mitigate that maybe and cut that whole thing in half. But it's using federal reserves, and I think, and I hope, about 140,000 this year for the last quarter, right? Am I,
Pretty accurate.
okay, I'm a good guesser. So anyway, but if there's cons to this, then tell me and I'll come back with another bad idea.
Okay, council, any comments?
I have a question in regards to the purpose, you know, you talked about wanting to make sure we let the staff know that we're still thinking of them. And would this purpose be like, this is basically just because we're thinking about you? Would this be to like increase retention of staff?
Well,
Maybe go across, because you know, a certain amount of money might help with retention, a certain might be a nice gesture. What are you hoping to accomplish with the 3 months of this?
if there is a wage disparity, which I'm sure there is, the 2.5 isn't gonna hurt that, it's only gonna help it. And it does send a message to the people that we are gonna be depending on should we fall under an emergency. I mean, who's gonna knock on your door first if it isn't first responders, police, fire? And so I just, I call it the guilt, call it a better way of doing it. It breaks the increase down, and it gets us to use funds, reserve funds, that haven't been obligated to anything, including the emergency fund. That money is just unobligated. So why are we not using that to our benefit instead of, and that's all, but yes, do I hope it improves turnover? Of course. Does it slow the bleed? Maybe. But if we do nothing and we keep sending the same message, we know what the answer is going to be. That's what I thought.
So do you believe that the 18% that you're talking about will then bring our wages up? That's sufficient to bring our wages up, so we will have parity, so we will be paying a fair wage if we're trying to be, if part of this then is to let our staff know that we are, behind them. Do you feel that 18% will be that fair wage for them, that will fit that in?
I don't know that. I do know that it makes, to me, and this is where we got probably a difference of opinion, but to me, it does not make a lot of sense for us to sit on a savings account we cannot use ever until we agree that this is that big fateful day. And yet we have, when I talked to Alexis about it, And she had a neighbor that just recently needed service. I just don't want the fire station to go dark on the west side. I mean, that's something we've invested in for decades. Why are we, I just don't understand that. And this is such an easy, simple vote. Yeah, the 18,000 generates, what, about 450,000?
So 9% around 450, so 18 would be 2 years of COLA.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2 years of COLA. So 9% and 9%. I don't know. I don't know how else to speak to it. I'll leave that to both the chiefs and anybody else that wants to take this on.
Tell you that I'm currently on the fence about the whole issue. I haven't heard a whole lot. I'm hoping tonight that we can get some definitive, maybe a better sway of which way to go on it, because private individual discussions have been, okay, we try not to spend something we don't know for sure we're gonna get, but at the same time, I do like the idea of, I mean, okay, let me switch gears here. Talking about if we were to do it, a bonus versus the base pay increase. And personally, I would have been more for a base increase than the bonus, because the bonus has been kicked around. I mean, has been done over and over again many times. And if somebody was wanting to be recruited into Roy and they want to look at our wages, they wouldn't see the bonus. They still only see the base pay. And so if we were wanting to do it for recruiting, then I believe it would be better to do it on a base pay so other people can see that it's still going to be below the other cities,
Right.
but it could be a little bit better. So if on one side or the other on that part, if we were to do it that way, I would be more apt to doing it on that. But then the other discussion that is so hard to not have is predicting what may happen with what we're gonna do with the fire district, with whether we're gonna keep it within Roy or push it to the Weaver Fire District. And that could change how the taxes altogether, everything's gonna be accounted for. So it's hard, we can't predict that one, because we don't have any kind of numbers whatsoever, and that one's not even gonna be an apples to apples comparison. That's gonna be a very difficult one to figure out. So looking at the future for me, I can only go on how I feel the fire district thing's gonna go on the limited information that I have. And as it sits, I would be personally okay with this increase based upon what I think's might happen with the fire district in the future, or with the fire department for the future. But it's really difficult to say, we are doing better on sales tax, but we don't have that much of a, how do you say, how many quarters we've got showing an increase. It doesn't make a good predictor about it. I mean, we're headed in the right direction. I love it. And I hope we continue that direction. I just hope we don't go the other way and have another COVID happen, or have something happen to where people are no longer, we're still in a combat situation now too. So gas prices are going up. A lot of things are going up. It's kind of hard to predict what's going to happen a little bit more in the future, but
I'll just say that everything is going on. So I can't imagine people wanting to work for Roy if there is no promise of, some kind of future. And again, it's 2.5. It's conservative. I know that. But 2.5 for roughly 20 of our employees is all they're going to get. And if this doesn't help turnover, I'm certain it's not going to hurt it. But I know I've been a squeaky wheel, and I recognize that. And I know I voted against the 28. I recognize that because it was too much. But if 28 is too much, 2.5 has got to be more than adequate. And that's how I feel. And
My base feeling about our taxes anyways, as it goes, is every time it eats up us council members because you go on seems like 4 to 5 year cycle, you get where the city gets into a rough spot where, hey, we might not be able to run if we don't raise taxes. So then the council votes to raise taxes, everybody gets voted out of their seats, and we get a whole bunch of new people that say, hey, I'm gonna go in there and make sure that nothing ever gets raised, and then they kick the can down the road 4 years until it's unattainable again. They raise taxes, and then the cycle starts over again. So I'm more apt to go towards a yearly tax increase base model as it is, a lower tax increase every year kind of a thing, but we gotta somehow fix the fire department's disparity in the pay. And doing our yearly tax increase ain't gonna get there, a smaller one. So whatever we do in the future to try to get this, the fire department done, we need to get fixed. So, but as it is, I would be in favor of this, just in the aspect that I feel like we need to go to a yearly small increase.
Right, and today we're just basically talking about the
the
COLA.
court,
The
The
COLA.
COLA, and, I mean, we've been having meetings, weekly about this and the wage study and wanting to keep our employees here and whatever we can do, and so, I mean, we just know, I mean, like Amber, she's the financial person, and it's hard to spend money that you don't, I mean, Amber, give us your opinion on it, cause you've told it to me many a time. She's like,
oh my God.
it is a morale booster, for sure.
Yeah.
And like
So,
you said, obviously next year, for sure, 18%, but then we wanna, gotta consider like the fire department.
or 9 and
And-
9. Like Matt said, or we could do 9 and 9.
Oh, yeah.
but that doesn't fix the disparity, I think, is
No,
what she's
no.
saying. I mean, our wages are so low, but that's only a COLA, right?
Right,
Right.
that's only
Yeah.
COLA. And to
So-
bring our wages up, it's gonna,
Yeah, so to save Amber for a second. Cause I do have a question for Amber at the end, but, so maybe we can combine that together. But, I know for me, I can only speak for myself, obviously, but, my number one goal as a council member for this, well, the wage issue that we're in is to focus on increasing the wages, because that's gonna make the biggest difference in getting us to where we need to be to keep our employees and to also take care of our citizens in the way that we need to. And so I think like, if you're like, okay, number one, what's your goal? I would say wages is number one. And then the COLA and merit obviously go along with those and keep those long-term, like, that's what keeps us long-term competitive if we keep up with those things as we go. But I guess my concern is if we use, let's say we decide to do a COLA. And I can tell you pros and cons. I've went around to all the department heads and talked to everyone. And I know some of the other council members have done that as well. If we did the COLA, we're using money that we don't have yet. And so it's not so much that, yes, we do commit ourselves to a certain tax percentage increase in the future. But also to me, it's, committing us to, like, before we have a plan, we're committing to a certain percentage before we have a set plan of how to bring these wages up. Because it will be a combination of the wages getting to, like, taking the wage survey and making sure that we're actually to the level that is competitive with other cities and similar jobs. But it also, we have the COLA that plays into it, and we have the merit that plays into it. So it's not just one of these things. And so, I don't think I've talked to any council member at any point that doesn't want to fix that. I think that that is an overall goal, that we all want to fix the wages and get us to a point that we because this really is the elephant in the room in everything we decide. It makes it so we really can't do much more until we take care of this problem. Like, it's because it's not just fire that we're losing public works, we're losing court. I mean, the more I've talked to, it's slowly bleeding to the rest of the departments. It's not just one department. And it's going, if we don't take care of it, it will continue to bleed to the rest of the departments. Like, the same exact thing that's been happening with fire and public works will continue to happen to all the rest of the departments if we don't take care of the issue. So I guess, what I'm trying to say is I don't know if we can make a decision about COLA without talking about some of the rest of this, if that makes sense, like, because it all works together. So that's kind of where I stand, just saying that, like, that's my priority, is wages are number one to me. And I do feel nervous using one-time money in an ongoing expense, without having a cohesive plan that we have all agreed to. Where now, on the other hand, you have the bonus option, where that is not an ongoing expense, but it is still using one-time money, but it's not an ongoing thing. So I think we do need to talk about the pros and cons of those. But I did have a question for Amber, and I promise it's not too dramatic for you, but, because Brian mentioned where the money, so right now, the money that he mentioned sitting there, whatever, from my understanding, and I could totally be wrong, maybe I understood this wrong, any leftover money that we have, we either decide to put it somewhere, or it goes to the fund balance and then it can go to like capital expenditure. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So we don't have funds budgeted every year to save for capital expenditures. So what we have been doing in order to fund those capital expenditures is any excess revenues over expenditures at the end of the year, they get transferred to the capital projects fund to pay for the next year's capital purchases. So our fund balance typically stays around the same percent because we do that.
So yeah, so they do, I mean, they do eventually, they go to a purpose. That's what I'm trying to clarify, is it's not just necessarily sitting there.
So we've
And-
talked about, like, we don't save enough for fire for capital, but because we do that each year, we are still able to buy their large purchases because we have money going into there. We have a rotation on police vehicles that we use to pay for that. And then just ongoing capital, if we have repairs to the building, that's what all of that is used for. So if we didn't do that, we would have to budget every year an amount to pay for all of those things.
And something I don't, so I've also been on the legislative committee with Alexis that it's done now, but, at the time we were listening to, all the different cities, and it's interesting to hear what they're all doing. And one of the bills was about how much we could have, like each city could have in their fund balance. And, so they asked each of the cities, like from the league, to send in how much we have in our, like what we generally keep in our fund balances. And, ours was, I'll just say it's much lower than most others. It's on the low side of other cities. Same with our capital fund. We are on the low side of that as well. So we've been frugal, we've been careful with money, and that's one reason that they are lower. But it's also put us in a difficult situation for the future. And that's what I'm worried about, I guess, is the future. So that's when I'm talking about that, says nothing. I think our employees are awesome. I think they deserve everything. Like, I would love to give them the world. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's about where we need to make sure that we actually have a plan that does protect those employees in the future, not just temporarily, but for long term. And so that's where I struggle with using one-time funds for an ongoing cost, if that makes sense. So, but I think we can talk about the pros and cons. I'm not closed off to some of those options. That's my struggle with it, I guess, as well.
So talking to all the department heads, so obviously, if you asked your employees, do you want a 2.5% COLA, who's gonna say, heck no? But is that the only thing that would keep them here at Roy City? Or do you think if they were already looking, that 2.5% COLA is gonna keep them here? Or do you think knowing that we're working on a wage study to try to, bring their wages up with all the other, surrounding cities and make us competitive so we can retain our employees? So what is your thoughts on that? So I'll start with you, Matt.
Now I gotta be careful I don't walk back anything I said to Diane and Janelle in our last meeting. So I've been thinking about this. And, obviously I've talked to Amber and Matt and the other department heads. And so I made some notes and I've kind of been thinking about this. So, the employees are gonna appreciate, hopefully, whether it's a bonus or a COLA, right? You have to be careful that neither is a slap in the face. 2.5% for my lowest full-time paid employees is gonna be about 50 cents. Those employees just applied for a job at a smaller agency with less work for $5 more an hour. They don't want to leave. They feel like they have to leave. I've got another sworn employee who is actively applying for being recruited by another small agency with less work and will receive $6 more an hour. Their starting rate is $4 more an hour. Now, as we look at bonuses versus COLAs, right, the bonus is gonna be one-time money to the employee as opposed to overtime. It doesn't do anything for wage, though, where the other one does have an impact on their wage. Janelle, I appreciate this comment because for several years, we had an issue with employee turnover. We were able to get that fixed in 2021. As I listened to Theron and Brandon, I haven't had the issues that they're dealing with now for 5 years. That is starting to actually become a problem in our department. I have people actively looking and they can leave for several dollars. They don't want to, but they have to.
So basically a 2.5% COLA, it's not gonna keep them here if they're gonna get paid by.
No, but I think if you commit, like, I get the whole one-time expenditure,
Right.
totally get it, budgeted, but what is the message you're sending? What is the commitment you're willing to make? I think that will speak volumes, even though the dollar amount isn't gonna be voluminous, right? I think the commitment and the transparency and the message will speak tons going into this next budget session, truth and taxation season. And so I think the combination of the two, if done the right way, he's gonna leave, right? He's gonna leave, this isn't gonna fix that. But I have an employee that likely will stay. And so that's kind of where I've been sitting.
Aaron?
I share the same sentiment. The 2.5 is a message. Is there a risk? Yeah. But I think at some point, we've got to take a risk to send a message to the employees. I just want to share this with you. I didn't plan this, but this is the last, 2 resignations ago. By our 13, I think this is important. This is how the employee in the fire department is viewing it. So he just says, in this, I'd like to address the main reasons for his resignation. Roy City has shown a pattern of not being able to support the fire department. Lack of fair compensation, lack of funding, and staffing have been a big issue. Minimum staffing is unsafe for the citizens and the members of the fire department. City budgets have been placed as a higher priority than the firefighter safety and professional standards. Firefighters are forced to work with unsafe staffing levels due to saving the city money. Roy City Fire Department has had a very bad consistency issue due to lack of leadership from some. Accountability and standards have been very inconsistent. I don't want to go into too much detail on this letter, but I'd love to expand if needed. Lastly, I would rather join the fire department that I would like to be a part of. I have played the game at Roy since 2012 and can no longer ride the roller coaster of inconsistency and being let down by the city. I have stayed and seen the focus on recruitment and not enough on retention. I have had many opportunities to leave in the past, but I have wanted to stay loyal to the department and to the city. There has been no career or personal benefit of my loyalty up to this point. I cannot spend the remainder of my career working for a city that has so mismanaged and unable to support their fire department and to be progressive and have high standards as we do. For these reasons, I feel like it's within my best interest to resign and join a fire department and city that could give me the support I need for the remainder of my career. So I get that in the last pretty much 20 so resignations.
When was that one?
This is just recently, within Kaysville,
Like within the last 2 weeks?
2 months, 2 months, month, yeah. So when I that's just a heartfelt letter. I think it's just important I share that with you. So when you start talking which one we should do, the 2.5 is a step in the direction. Does it solve the problem? No. But it's, yeah, is there an inherent risk that we, yes, it is. And that's, we've been, I mean, the message that's been, said before is we just keep kicking the can down the road. And it's this now, elected officials, do you pick up the can and make a calculated risk? Is it a risk? Yes. But for my employees, we're to the point where anything is going to help. The bonus, the 2.5 shows, it actually goes for us, it goes on retirement. It increases the wages that we're trying to do. So I'm a proponent of doing the 2.5. It would stop retention. No, because the gap has now increased so much. I don't believe it would, but it would send an informal message that finally, or we can make, as you can hear in that message, that there's just been too much inconsistency, not truly committing to it because of the fears. There has been conservative approach, which has been good. But now, unfortunately, it's created such a large gap. How are we ever going to make that up?
Well, it's hard because
Yeah.
I voted for the 28% increase, keep your, to get your fire department up and then to where, it didn't go through. It's just sad that we've lost so many more of your firemen
And they recognize that. I do think they appreciate it, but it feels like there's always an obstacle and an inconsistency to get us to that next level.
But just a question, you mentioned that the 2.5% from one-time funds poses a risk. How would you articulate that risk? What's the risk that we really would be taking?
The risk is not like it's always been spoken of. It's ongoing, right? But in our simple minds, we know the disparity of the wages is so far behind anyway. You gotta increase taxes anyway. So if it's not a risk for us, it's financially, how do you make that up? That's what I'm saying is, in our simple minds, like, well, take the risk.
So you
At
just-
some
you just
point, you're
mean-
gonna have to do it anyway.
So you just mean the risk is spending one-time monies and the risk is not being able to replenish it? Is
Correct.
that, okay?
Correct.
Can I suggest something that I feel like is a risk as well in that?
Sure.
I've thought about this at length. I'm talking like what I sat down with you, like in my campaign, and I've really thought about not this specific issue, but the whole overarching issue. And especially in the last 2 weeks since I proposed this meeting. And I am just back and forth, and this is what's hanging me up. The one time, let's just in a fantasy world where I could spend one-time monies to send a message and bring up 2.5% COLA and then promise everybody that I had just paid that I can continue that by passing it whatever we've said, 18 or 9%. If I could guarantee that, I probably would. That's against my own, like, inside there's a struggle there because it's like one-time thing, but ongoing. But here's the problem that I see. The risk to me is not being able to, oh, we can't replenish it, or it will take some time. The risk for me is in the unfortunate event that we could not deliver on a promise like that. that we might be even looking at a pay cut, backtracking and saying, we can no longer pay for this, or keep paying out of one-time funds till what eventually goes dry. That's what scares me, is to not be able to look these people in the face and say, I did it. I would have to look at them and say, we tried and it failed again for X, Y, Z reasons. We already saw it happen once. That reason or that path where it failed due to, it wasn't certified. It may not be that reason, but we've seen other attempts at other reasons. Okay, to not let our certified tax rate go through. And I'm just saying that that's what scares me, is that it would have to be a backtrack. And as terrible as it was to not be able to go ahead and go through with the budget that we proposed, because we proposed the tax, or not me, but because it was proposed and passed a tax increase, could not follow through on that. And then as terrible as it was to then say, oh, that raise that we had promised, it didn't go through. I see a far worse situation in having to backtrack. And so what I propose is that to me, that's why I asked, like, what do we see as the risk here? Because that's what truly scares me, is like I said, if it was just that I can guarantee this go through, but we haven't even met about that. We're not even to tax discussion time. And so for me to just to say, yes, I can pay this, but I can't promise that it will continue. I feel like that's a bigger disservice than just not getting it in the first place. And that's where I'm coming from. But do you understand what I?
Yeah, no, and I just would hopefully not interrupt,
No.
but make a comment, that I spoke with Diane and Janelle yesterday. And inherently, we all have a responsibility in our current roles. What I'm trying to deliver to the city is what I believe you want me to. And that is to provide, I'd say, top tier, great service to the resident for the fire and emergency medical. That's what we do. I would expect that that's what you want me to do. So now give me the pathway to accomplish that. And I can't do that. You're hearing, I can't provide that. And so each of us have those roles, and we talked about this morning, what's the mission of the city within each department? And I think everybody would say, we want to give. I think everyone in here just wants to do our job and deliver the services to the residents, what we believe they should have. Now, what's the path to do that? Having high turnover, losing over 30-something firefighters, that's not the way we're going to accomplish that. So that's what I'm saying. All of it weighs heavily on each of us to do our jobs, to do it well. Now, how are we going to do it? And the inconsistency is because I think it's been changing new count year after year after year. It keeps getting pushed aside. We can't seem to be committed to it. And then obviously there's the financial part of it. So that would be my question. What do you guys want us to provide? Because there is going to be a risk either way. There's a risk to the residents if we can't provide right. I had to shut a station down the other day. We didn't have a battalion chief. I can't keep making people working over their hours. So that's a risk, the high turnover. So overall, there's risk everywhere. Can we calculate a safer risk, I guess, is my question.
Well, I think that, what I've been hearing now from everybody, and if I'm wrong, like, stop, but I don't think anybody, everyone has expressed that at the core of this issue is we have observed a problem and we're in this room to fix it. And I hope that, when I suggested a meeting like this, that we all could sit, and say, we're Roy City, we're this team. And that's really how I see it, is us trying to kind of come to a long-term solution. And honestly, the 2.5% COLA could be part of that. I'm not even suggesting that I'm like not gonna do it. That's my hang up, because I worry about the fallout if we don't deliver, because we haven't even talked about the plan going forward. We haven't talked about a tax proposal. But it's not even so much that, Brian was saying, well, 18 is way less than 28. That's not the problem for me. It's not the amount, it's that it hasn't happened yet. And that's what scares me. But even beyond that, I think what I'm hearing from everybody is that we are all just trying to solve this problem. And I feel like it's the proof of a commitment that we're all here. And I'm hoping that at the very least, that's sending some kind of a message that we are here. We've got a wage study going. They're already working on it. Janelle and Diane have been working on that with the mayor, right? Are you as well? And they've been working on it. We've been talking about other areas of the budget and we are getting to the root of this. I mean, it's easy for me to say, right? Cause I just got in here. But I mean, the letter from your firefighter there he said, it's been here from 2012. I don't know how to answer that, except that this just has to be a long-term solution. And so, I don't know. Again, I'm on the fence, but I'm not one way or the other perfect because I think there's problems with all of them. I think using the one-time money for a COLA can be a problem, as I just described. That using the one-time, money for a bonus or retention bonus has issues as well. We've already talked about those. And doing nothing, I think also has potential problems. There's not a perfect way out of this. I hope that we can end up with a plan that we feel like is acceptable and not perfect. I just don't think we're gonna find a perfect plan, but an acceptable plan where we see ourselves out of this, showing that we're taking steps to fix it.
Then I would dare say, well, let's negotiate.
Yes.
Then commit that, well, I'm gonna be real honest, then commit. And the residents are gonna like this, then you have to commit to the services, if that's what the vision is. If that's what the services you want us to provide, you have to commit to it. And the only way you're gonna commit to that, saying that I'd say negotiate, then taxes have to raise, sorry, Brian. Taxes have to be raised. If you want these services to be at this level, then you gotta commit to it. Sure, I'll take the bonus. Then I'll ask it to negotiate and say, then commit to this.
Well, I would not even say
That-
stop at a one-time payment.
So,
Never, no.
well, commit to the plan of whatever that is, and then you commit to it. And sometimes we're judged by what we do and not our intentions.
Sure,
And quite honestly, that's in my world. So,
absolutely.
anyway, I think I've said a lot.
Can I
think it-
respond?
Please.
So so what happened with the tax commission's decision last fall? I think there's a difference doing this, taking a political risk, whether it be the referendum, a few citizens showing up and yelling at you versus a technical issue, right? That issue in the fall was merely a technical issue. And so I can understand and even agree with you to a point on, you don't want to overpromise to employees, not be able to deliver, and now you're letting employees go. The inverse is they just leave on their own and that attrition gets resolved because the wage isn't resolved. And so that also is the risk, right? Is these people are gonna leave on their own. When the salaries were starting to creep up, even before the CPI started taking off, both fire and public safety agencies, and I imagine streets, it was all the same, right? When we were at market, we were all fighting at the fringes to get employees. We don't even have that luxury anymore. That was a good place to be. And so, yes, we need to be careful about overpromising and not delivering, but at the same time, if we don't, then they're just gonna leave anyway, and then that problem doesn't ever come to fruition. And so that was just my.
This is why I say I'm just back and forth
Yeah.
because everything's equally risky, I
Coming
guess.
From a military background, I'm gonna interrupt, but everything that whenever we make decisions out on the battlefield type stuff, it's more risk mitigation, and you're still gonna have risk in everything, and you're trying to push to reduce the risks is all you can really do. You're gonna have risk, and no matter what the decision is gonna be, and there's some outcomes you can't plan for, and you're just gonna have to roll with the punches, as it were, as it is. So you gotta make the plan ahead of time. And, as the generals always say, that a good plan never survives the first contact with the enemy. But I have confidence that we can make it, if we've committed to the COLA increase, that we can back that up in the continuing years. I'm pretty risk adverse when it comes to this kind of a thing, and I'm risk averse in my own personal finances, but this one, when I've myself looked at the risks for the city failing and becoming a worse place than when I was given the responsibility to try to help manage the city, I know that there's risk in that, and the failure of that in myself is always something that I want, that usually prevents me from making a decision on that. It would prevent me from wanting to risk anything about my reputation or anything that I say, but this is one thing that I've been wanting to fix in Roy and help fix. since I was on the planning commission, so I'm committed to increasing the COLA for the employees. I think right now, the more that we're discussing this, was on the fence, but I want to make that choice that pushes us in the right direction, and I think this is gonna be the right direction. We'll see in a few years from now, but from weighing out probabilities, I think increasing the COLA is going to be our best benefit overall as a city. Are we gonna mitigate all the risks? No, I think it's gonna fix all the risks, but I think we need to do something that pushes it in the right direction, and sometimes the momentum can help us keep that momentum going in the right direction. So I want to get the momentum changed and get it going in a good direction. So I think at this moment, I think I'm for increasing and doing it as a COLA.
Well, and I feel that we know that, you know, I think our future for Roy City is bright with a lot of development. It's, you know, that we have talked with people that want to come to our city, and that will bring us more, you know, increase. And like Theron says, what do we want for our employee? Do we want somebody who's a seasoned employee to show up at our house if we have an emergency, or someone who's just out of the police academy, you know, and just, you know, faces a shooting or something, or someone's having a heart attack? I mean, every citizen that I've talked to said, I'm willing to pay higher taxes to keep Roy City how it is. We love our city. We love, you know, our fire department. We love our police department, our public works, our rec. You know, that's why people move here, is because of all of those programs and our safety record. And I just feel that it's just the citizens need to know that we, you know, do have a tax increase. They just want to know where all that money is going. And is it gonna make Roy a great place to live? And I mean, I'm for the COLA myself, even though it's already gonna be a tax increase. We know there was gonna be one next year anyway, because we didn't get anything this year. And being on the wage study committee, we know that we have a lot of work, but we have Amber and Matt, two really smart people with numbers also, that have been working really hard to try to keep that tax increase, you know, not too bad to where I have to put a security guard in front of my house. And so, but I really feel that with us working, we've been thinking of everything in this wage study committee. Of what we can do to keep our employees here. And I love, you know, all of the heads of the departments. I think they're all just such good people, and I can't imagine how hard it is for you guys to lose these good employees that you've become friends with, trained, and they love Roy. The money talks, man. If my husband came home and said, I can get $5 more an hour somewhere else, I'd say, honey, sorry, I don't care if you love Roy, you're leaving. And I just feel that that's kind of where we're at right now. And I think giving them a COLA, which is not my decision because I'm not a council member, but I just think that's kind of a good faith, showing them that they didn't get anything last year. And I mean, me and my husband always spent it before we had it, and I know that's not a good thing to say, but I just feel that I just think it would be a good morale boost for the employees to know that we feel bad that they didn't get anything last year. And when would it take effect if we did do how many months would they get the COLA for? Just
Won't be ongoing, but we could do it as soon as probably next payroll, right now.
like in April.
No, we do it right.
It would start maybe in April, so they'd get a few months of that. So, but Matt and Amber, I want your opinion on this, because I know it's probably not the same as mine, but because you guys know how all the numbers work. I'm thinking more on emotional, just trying to keep our city together. And so,
Well, you're asking two finance people to spend money that we don't have,
right,
that, you can't, it would be very difficult for me, and I've expressed this before, to say, I think it's a good idea to do that. Because if something does fail, the people that you would be looking toward to answer the questions is Amber and I. And so we are on that side of the aisle on that, obviously, because of our financial background and for that purpose of taking that responsibility, because we have to answer those questions as to why that didn't happen. But to say that employees need COLAs, absolutely. They do need COLAs. When we're looking at last year being 17% behind, a COLA plays into that. So now we can say we're 19.5% roughly behind. So to say that we're not behind and going somewhere else for $6 an hour, 2.5% is not going to fix that though. So anybody to think that, yeah, 2.5% and we're well on our way, no, it's not. It's not just that. So it is a very difficult decision because we do not have that money, the ongoing money it takes to pay for it. And when we, Councilmember Holbert talked about this in respect to the legislative committee that we were all attending, it was pretty fascinating to see that we were at 21%. And on average, people are like Riverdale cities at 35%. And most of the cities, 50% of them were over 30%. I think it was 66%. So to say we have all this money to spend on average with other cities, we don't. We have, it's a lot of money, but when you're running a, $30 million budget, that reserve isn't as big as you think. As an individual, $4 million is a lot of money, but as an organization of this size, it's truly not. So to say, I'm not gonna, for myself, like I truly believe the employees need that increase. But to say that we have that money to do it, that makes me very uncomfortable. But for you guys to make that decision, I am not the one that can raise taxes either. That is not my decision. That is a council decision. And so it needs to be your decision what you want to do with that. Because if we do not have that money, it comes down to raising taxes or cutting other services. And when you're talking about $450,000, you're not talking about little services. You're talking about big services. You're talking about more human capital to layoffs. To put into perspective, Roy Day is $120,000. So you take out Roy Days out of the equation, you still don't have a 2.5% COLA. So you're not talking these little cuts. You're not talking about not going to a training or something like that. You're talking about massive services.
Can I say that I'm glad that you brought that up, because when we're talking long-term, and that's why I say my number one is wages, because like you said, if we add money we don't have and then something happens and we can't rate, like we added the COLA, but we can't raise wages now for whatever reason. And I mean, I'm for raising the wages because we need to. I'm just saying, for whatever reason, I'm one person, I can't choose for everyone. If that happened, we put ourselves in a very dangerous situation for the future going forward. And you're right, jobs could be cut in the future. Like that is a possibility if we don't take care of the wage issue. And so that is a concern I have for the future. If we go and we say, okay, we have 18%, this is just the COLA. We know wages, what were they, 17% behind or whatever it was last year? So now 19 something, maybe more. We're talking more than an 18% tax increase. And I don't know if every council member here is willing to do that. And so if we're not willing to do over that amount, we will not save anything. You'll have a COLA, nothing else will be fixed. And I'm trying to be very blunt about that because we will already be promised to the COLA. So that's my fear. That is, and it's because I am ready, I will fight for the employees. I will fight for our citizens. By fighting for our citizens, we fight for our employees to fight for our citizens, if that makes sense. And I'm ready to do that, but I don't know if the full council is aware enough of those numbers. And we don't even have the full numbers because you're still working on budget stuff, right? So I'm not sure we're full enough aware of those numbers to make a decision about that and, or unless we are, if we're like, most of us are like, we're fine raising taxes above 18%, then by all means, you know, but if you're like, no, there's no way in heck I'm doing that, then do not vote for this because I will not.
Even still, let's say even just suppose that we all approved to pay a tax increase, there was no discussion, it was that easy, done, it's passed. There are, I mean, we've already seen attempts with a referendum, suppose that that was successful, because we're not even the last word. Like, we still answer to residents and they still have a say. And there's been, you know, it's become popular now to sign petitions. And so that's just, and I guess I want to ask this question and pose it to those who are leaning towards, you know, give the COLA, it sends the message. And that is, suppose that happens, suppose we did pass whatever we need to either keep the COLA, or if you want to say we passed whatever we need to bring up to median, whatever you want to say, suppose we passed it and for one reason or another, it failed. Let's say that we did not get that increase. What is, and this is not a gotcha, like, I don't know the answer, so I'm looking for like, what are some suggestions? What do you do? Like, do you lay off people? Do you know, some people, do you cut services? Like we were talking, that's a lot of services to have to cut. Or do you walk it back and say, okay, that was just for, because it was one-time money, it only covers that last quarter of 26? Do you then decrease pay? Like, what is kind of, what are some like ideas? Do you see what I'm just like, yeah, like what could you do? Cause I don't see like a viable option.
How I would see it panning out is, like I said, it come down to a referendum, and I think at that point you would have your citizens basically, because you guys have put out there that it was for raises. Your citizens would be basically telling you then we're gonna cut services, because I feel like that's the two options we have. So at that point, like I said, it's gonna punch all my guys in the gut, so I don't think you reel back the wages. I'm gonna have enough guys that leave, and then unfortunately, you probably don't fill their position. So that oh, go ahead.
Regarding that, if it is a COLA, you're not able to roll back those wages because that becomes a legal issue. So if it's a COLA, I mean, you'd be then deducting pay, and you have to go through that process set out in statute. And it's not just a quick vote or anything.
So in that case, if we were to say this money from one time, like our reserves, our reserve fund, this money is intended to pay a COLA for the last quarter of fiscal year 26, that has to stay
So if you do it as
for the next year?
if you do it as a COLA, it's like they said, it's an ongoing expense. If you did it as a bonus, that's not something that would be an ongoing expense.
So-
But a COLA would be an ongoing expense.
Okay.
So you couldn't walk that back.
So further question, that's not even an option now. You can't undo it. How do you keep paying for it?
Keep
So
the-
can you ever cut,
No.
can you ever cut wages, or do you just have to cut people?
You'd have to cut people.
You have to
You
cut.
can never cut wages.
But you can, it's just,
There's a
it
process.
depends.
There's a process.
Yeah.
Option, whereas walking back wages is not an option on the table, but reducing workforce is, cutting services is, so like, these are the options if we were stuck. I mean, heaven forbid, right?
Well, and with what Brandon's saying is, if that's what the citizens want, they want us to cut services, that is jobs. That is also jobs, like, there's no way around that, like. that-
Yeah.
That's true.
And I wanna be real careful, cause my guys listen to this,
Yeah.
and when you guys say cut, it doesn't do me any
Yeah.
favors,
No,
so.
I don't wanna cut.
Like, I have enough turnover, and that's sad but that's the reality of it, is I have enough turnover, so I don't think we'd ever have to cut somebody. Yes, I do think that we would maybe not fill a position until we got it figured out, so when you guys say cut, I like to,
I mean,
because
that's in
it
your
sends my
department.
guys a bad message.
That's in your
so.
department, but I'm talking about not necessarily, like, if you cut certain
yeah.
services, then jobs start to disappear. if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and-
Like,
yeah.
whether we want them to or not, that's just what
And
starts to happen.
My department's obviously different, so like, I'm mostly enterprise funds, so it would basically affect the street department the most. So that would be, you know, your road may not get plowed for a few days, like, there's certain things that they wouldn't realize until it was on them, that their services would be cut, their potholes probably wouldn't get filled. So, I mean, that's how I would envision how you guys would, you know, fix that, because that's how what I would say the citizens are saying to you at that point is, you know, cause it's basically wages or services.
Thank you for clarifying that, because that's what I'm saying in this, you know, in this dire situation where we've provided a COLA, if we've done that, then we can't continue it with revenue, what are the options left? And so, yeah, I'm by no means proposing start axing
Yeah.
people. Now, that's not, I'm talking about, you gotta think forward. This is like a very, very long-term discussion. So I'm just like, yeah, because I don't know the answer either. I don't know where you look to fill the gaps and where, I don't know.
Yeah, and I wanna be very clear, I do not wanna cut people. I do not, I just wanna be clear about that, like, in
Yeah.
fact, some of the departments need people, you know, like they need additional people, so. And I would love to be in a position to give them that, in fact, I would hope that we could, because I think there is a lot of extra burden on a lot of departments right now. Because of just how things have went, and, but yeah, so I guess what I'm just trying to say is that using one-time funds does possibly, and maybe it won't happen, and I would be okay with using one-time funds for a COLA if we were all on board saying, yes, we are okay, because but I would rather use that 18% if everybody's not on board, I would rather use that 18% to raise wages in general, not just a COLA. Like, I would like to use that towards raising the wage. So I know that the COLA does help raise the wage, I get that. But it's not exactly the same as raising the actual wage of, like, you know, by a couple of $2 to $5, whatever it is. So I guess that's just my concern, is I just want to know that as a council, if we do that, like, that people would be on board to actually make that happen, cause like I said, I'm willing to fight for our employees, I'm willing to fight, and I think by fighting for our employees, I'm fighting for our citizens, because I think that they do want those services. And so I'm willing to do that, but I'm one person on a council, so. And I don't think we've heard from Michelle, if you wanted to say anything.
I would echo what I feel like everybody is saying. COLA is wonderful and it's a great step, it's a step in the right direction. However, our priorities would be a wage correction, implement the wage study to get all of our staff up to market value. And that's where our priority would be. No, I'm not bleeding like the fire department, but we did lose someone who tried to wait as long as possible. You know, hoping that those tax increases would have been implemented and they didn't come through, and he ended up making the decision to leave. Just like everybody else, he didn't want to, but for the betterment of him and his future and his future family, that's the choice he had to make. And I'm sure there's 2 or 3 others that are anxiously awaiting that because they want to move on with their life and have those other mile markers, so.
So Matt, so the next step would be after even all this discussion and getting input would be what?
Just giving us a direction on how you want to proceed.
Is this something we would bring to council and?
If you were to give us a direction of doing bonuses or something, we could just fund it and start proceeding. When we did the last year's budget, initially it was in there to do it. You voted to do it. However, the city has not implemented that COLA because we did not have that tax. Because so, you know, like when you did the 28% increase, that offset was coming from taxes. That offset would have to be changed. So, but.
Which this isn't something I mean, we have to have like a vote on it, or we could
We could
just
have
give
a
you direction.
direction.
I mean,
For it.
What were you gonna say, Amber?
Well, with our last budget amendment, that correction was made that it's now, we didn't adjust all of the wage accounts, because you're talking like 200 accounts at this point, so we just took it from fund balance, knowing we wouldn't, so that correction has already been made. That it would come from fund balance instead of the tax increase.
So what I hear is that, we're talking a lot about a small COLA compared to the big picture and that really wages are the big issue. And for us to have an artificial, good, warm feeling that this 2.5% COLA right now is really gonna help anything. I think it's been pretty clear that it's only, as we had someone say, it's only phase one, and we can't commit to, I don't think we can just commit to phase one. If we commit to phase one, I think what it really means is we're committing to the entire process of correcting this wages, and 18% is only for COLA. 18% tax increase is only for COLAs. That has nothing to do with wage increase, because I think the numbers that get bantered around get mixed up. You say 2.5% COLA, but that really means 9% tax increase. You say our wages are down 19 or 20%. Well, a 20% wages being down does not mean a 20% tax increase. That means like maybe a 40% tax increase or a 50% tax increase. I mean, the numbers, we start using these percentages interchangeable, but they don't, you can't interchange 20% below median wage to somehow mean what the tax increase would be, because they are completely different numbers. And I think that starts getting mixed up. And so if we're gonna do phase one, I think it means we need a commitment to the entire party and not just feel good that we started and then, just left it hanging. I don't know. That's my concern from a little bit of what I'm hearing now. I don't know, Brian, what do you think about phase one versus the whole party? How does that sound to you?
Well, first of all, the council, the last council, by a 4-1 vote, put the 2.5 in that budget. And when the state said no, that took it out of the budget. All I'm saying is, why can't we use dollars that have not been allocated, have not been obligated to save the last quarter of 26?
So it's actually, I think, a 1.5%.
No,
is what it was.
it was,
What we voted for was a 1.5%.
So in the initial budget, there was a 2.5%. When the motion was made, it dropped that to a 1.5 and used the rest for wages.
so, I agree with Janelle in that, yeah, this is a political risk. But the thing is sales tax revenues came in at 2.63 above, which was roughly a 3% swing in sales tax revenue. If we have sales tax revenue coming in above and beyond, then that is money that we have available to us. Yes, is it a risk? Yeah, it's a risk, but when you ran for office, it was a risk. And my point is that if we put this aside and wait further, we're not gonna have any more time to wait. And the last time we used bonuses, that didn't work.
So what about the wage discrepancy? Where does that fit in your?
It at least puts us 2.5% closer on the wage disparity. I can't see a down with this other than, yeah, I hate taxes, don't want to pay 9% more next year, but 9% is a heck of a lot lower than 28. My point is, we're somewhere in between and we need to get to that number.
Yeah, I do want to clarify, I don't think it's a political risk for me personally. I'm saying
No,
that is not, I openly said when I ran for office that I was for the tax increase. So to me, that's not even in the thing. what it, to me, is I'm worried about the future of the employees and the city. Does that make sense? Like, I am worried about what the wages, what we will get to, and if everybody's on board, then I'm not worried about the future so much, as much. I mean, there's still things that could happen, but if we're not all on board to do a tax increase that actually makes a difference in the future, then we're just, like, I would rather have the 18% go towards wages, is what I'm saying, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to clarify that.
The financial risk, it's not a.
Yes, it's
Well,
not
I
a
agree.
political risk, at least to me, it's a financial risk.
I mean, a bigger, what you might call political risk would be increasing taxes. That's a political risk, right? But we're talking about one-time funds. That's what the financial risk is, that we're this taking something that you can't promise. But you know what? I think Brendan had a really excellent point. I like it. And that's, that if, I'm throwing out all these ways that it might fail and it might, have to change our minds or adjust, whatever, if we don't get the tax increase that this would commit us to. And that is, if it was a referendum deal, that would be residents opposing paying wages. We're not always the last say. And I think that, maybe that's the voice of residents saying, it's not wages we want to pay. And that's not something that I have control over, because that's an electorate body. Saying, and I just keep thinking about that, how, that's a really good point. We can't promise it, we can't commit to it today, because that's not what we're doing, is to say, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna pass it, and all in favor. That's not what this is today, but this is just kind of throwing that around. I think that's just a really good point.
And weren't we gonna have like, an open house and some, public meetings where actually the residents can hear if, the reasons why, if we do have a tax increase, for our fire department to stay here, 'cause everyone wants the fire department to stay here, everybody wants, when their sewer backs up, they want Brandon to show up at their house. I mean, everybody wants it, but we gotta show them that, well, if you want it, then you have to pay for it, because it's not free. And so I just feel that, I don't know, I want to keep our employees here, but I want to keep their wages up also. Do you think that 2.5% COLA would keep anybody who already says they're leaving your department, would it keep them here? Or you think they're already?
Yeah, so I think the 2.5 shows that you guys are willing to, stick your neck out on the line. I think like I said, 2.5 is not gonna cure my problem, but I think it's gonna buy some time till you guys can work through the budget process. So I like to say, if somebody's already looking, it's probably too late at that point. But I think this will help them from looking, because they see you guys are willing to stick your neck out on the line, and then they're willing to wait to see what happens this coming budget. And I think they'll stick around at that point, but.
I've averaged 7 to 9 leaving a year. I went for how long? Almost 6-8 months with down 5 firefighters. And then I tried to offer the 2 to help. I mean, again, so both your points, I'm already there. I'm gonna lose on average, the last 4 years, 5 to 9. So I'm gonna be there anyway if something doesn't get done. And then I won't have to fill, then I can't fill it because no one wants to come work here. I'm testing 5 people at a time for it. It's just, it's hard. So that's, I don't know.
You're there. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I mean, again,
that's
I'm,
very true.
as soon as we come out of this and July hits, boom, I was like, oh, I'm out. So we just filled them, we just hired them, we spent the money on them. I can calculate the money. It's over $500,000 we spent in the last, that doesn't seem to resonate, how much we spend in training, hiring, and then they leave. And that doesn't even talk about the ones who over 8 to 10 years. Now all that investment's out the door. So again, that's, it's gonna happen here. If we hit July, nothing's done. I'm right back.
Just what you're saying right there, we've definitely lost money as a city because we've lost so many employees. Like, every time you have to retrain, or you have to go through that. Yeah, get new equipment for whoever, depending on the, department. Every time you do that, you do lose money, you lose. When I toured Public Works, something that really stood out to me is, like, Public Works is kind of like, you know everything in the little quirks of your car and all this or whatever. You know whether you can kick the wheel and it will stop doing whatever, the light will come on or whatever. And Public Works is kind of like that they know all the intricate parts of our city, like what areas have acidic soil or all that stuff. So when we lose long-term employees there, we are losing, really knowledge. And like I said, also you're paying to retrain someone as well. So, I mean, I definitely agree with all of that. And like I said, I'm ready to fight for our employees. I just want to know that the rest of everyone else is. And I think that's what I'm getting is from the other council members, but I guess they can tell us, I don't know.
The thing is too, is like Janelle, Diane, I've been saying is this is so much bigger than a 2.5% problem. Like this is so much deeper than that. And, you know, we have a quorum's worth of new council members who've just inherited this issue and are trying to, I don't know. To me, I'm looking at this 2.5% and I'm going, okay, that's one-time money. It's not coming back. Does that make a dent in this problem? But we've just already outlined how big this gap is truly humiliating to Royce City. I'm embarrassed by this, that we can't pay our people. I really am. And yet we expect, you know, the caliber of service that you provide. There's by being elected, we represent residents. And we are charged with making sure that they have services to live here. But to do that, we need to have departments that function. I feel like that's kind of a twofold thing. You've got to have a culture in your department that people like to be there. Not one of these department heads that I've talked to have said they have a culture issue. Okay, the people who are leaving say things that we have to go. We don't have another choice. We've hung on as long as we can, that kind of thing. Culture is not the problem. Pay is the problem. And I feel like it's bigger than 2.5%. So what I'm wondering, and this is why kind of we're here, I suppose, is the 2.5% gonna make a dent? Because if it is, I really want to consider it. And if it's so superficial of a problem, 2.5% COLA disparity, that it just doesn't even begin to get at it, then we're gonna have to go forward with our wage study and seriously look at this, which they're doing. They're looking at it and they're finding appalling numbers in the gaps in pay compared with comparable municipalities. And those are the things that I think that the ones who are on the committee are saying, yeah, we could talk 2.5% today, but this is way bigger. We've got to get you guys more. We just got to get you guys more. So is this a good faith effort? This sit down, this wage study, is that a good faith effort? Is it not good enough? Not to say, oh, do you not care? But is it not quite, would the 2.5 make a difference in retention, in morale? Would it?
Yeah, it's a dent, sure it would.
It would.
What employee in this city is gonna say, no, that doesn't help me? Not one. Every one of them is gonna say, thank you, it helps, it is a dent. Now, does it stop it? It could. Again, it's the message you wanna send.
Does it communicate more?
I believe it does.
I'm committed to increase the pay no matter what, no matter if I'm only on the commission for council, I should say.
Not commission.
I used to say commission too much. But if I'm only on the council for 2 years, I still want to be committed to helping turn around this wage gap. And it's not gonna happen. I would never expect to try to make this happen in 1 year's tax increase to fix the disparity. It's just not gonna happen. But I'm even more now solidly committed to my vote here today. Going for the COLA is also going to be my vote for the next year's increase. I know that that's what I'm committing to, and I'm wanting to commit to that.
Yeah,
Because
that's what's important to hear for me.
Well, I love it off the council. I mean, when I was on, I don't know why we didn't have small tax increases for years before I even got on the council. I felt if we would have had 2, 3, 4% a year, maybe we wouldn't be in this spot. You know, I mean, I know a lot of surrounding cities that do that and they've been able to keep up, you know, their wages. So I don't know, it's not something that we vote on, Matt. So
Well, I just, I think Chief Williams had a really good point about negotiating.
Right.
I think we need to negotiate, and so.
Yeah, 'cause we
I
want to
guess
keep our
what I-
employees here and.
What I kind of want to do is, Brian, you are very concerned about citizens and you're very concerned about our staff, and I appreciate that. But my concern is when I hear you talk about this, I don't hear you acknowledging the disparity of the wage. And I believe in COLAs. I absolutely believe, in fact, I was so glad we did COLAs when I was out for a little bit because we need that to keep up. But it's not enough. And so I think part of this negotiation is, I guess I don't hear you saying that you realize wages are a big part of this problem. I hear you only say COLAs. And am I misunderstanding that? Am I missing
Yes.
that boat?
You are,
Okay,
you are missing that boat. 2.5, or if it's added, goes to their wages. That all of these department heads can say, look, see, we started. Before you learn how to dance, you need to know how to walk. And my point is if we're not willing to take a 2.5% risk,
that's a 9% tax increase. That's.
I understand that, and you know how badly I wanted last year
Yeah,
for it to be a single digit number.
I do.
And I would have jumped aboard with dancing shoes.
But that would have only been COLA. That doesn't address wages. So that's why I appreciate
Yeah,
going
but-
through this.
But the
I appreciate that a
The
lot.
cost of living will be added to their wages. That's why to me, the bonus don't make a lot of sense.
Okay?
Because the
Makes sense.
bonus isn't gonna show up.
Mhm.
And last time we used it, it failed miserably.
So that's good, historical. So that's 9% now. We're gonna need 9 or 10% next year. I mean, this is if we're adding up our percentages.
Right.
And now we already know that we are probably, if we average it out, 20% median wage below and a 20%, that's probably gonna be, again, I already said that number. That's gonna be probably double that. I mean, we're talking pretty big numbers. Because even last year when we were talking 28%, that only did median wage at 50% of the median wage. It only got us up, we weren't even to median, we were like at a quarter of median wage, So, I mean, this is gonna be big, we're talking big.
And I understand that, and that's coming. And I get that. But if we're not willing to tell these folks 2.5,
Mhm.
what makes you think that we're gonna be able to tell them 28 or 35 or 45? My point is that we have this money in reserve that could be paid. It's not dedicated to earthquake preparedness. It's there. Why are we not using it this budget year? Why are we making an example of the employees? Yeah, am I concerned about tax increases? Yes, always have been. And you know that.
Yep, I'm right there.
You
Concerned with
sat
it,
in the living
absolutely.
room and
Right,
listen to me pick on you.
yeah,
But the point is that if we don't show something, man, I don't know.
well, I want you to know, it's very reassuring for me to hear you say those other numbers and stuff like that,
Well, I
because
feel
I think.
obligated to them too.
Right, and so, with that being said, I think you talked me into it, you smooth talker, you.
Well, I've never been accused of being a smooth talker.
I'm afraid, yeah.
But tonight,
I think
March
that's what we
17th,
wanted to hear is what if you're willing, to.
Well, I feel like you've addressed the COLA. What we're just hoping is that we can all understand that this is just more than that. And it's like, but it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is you gotta start somewhere. Why not take this step as part of a longer term plan? Why not start now? Is that accurate?
well, and like Matt said, 9% if you go 2 years. So it's up to us again,
Well, it's another 9%.
right?
Yeah.
But it's,
Cause next year, I think they've estimated 2.8% for a COLA. It could, I mean, that's just an
With
estimate.
social security, yeah.
yeah. With social, yeah. So the reason I took the idea to Matt, the first reason was absolutely, I felt guilty. Believe it or not, I felt guilty. And I'll tell you why, because I've used all their services. And I'm on the council, and I'm really well liked by Glenda. And people like me, and it's time that I start letting people know that, you know what, if you like what you've got, you gotta pay for it. They've been to my house, well, most of them have been to my house on a call.
That makes me feel very good to hear you.
So
Well,
I
I want to know that hearing you commit to addressing that full resolution is very reassuring to me, very refreshing, and I just feel that we're more as a team, because I think the beauty of this council is our ability to be as a team, and so you committing to that higher, you know, we don't know what it is, but committing to a higher tax increase, I just want you to know, Brian, is very refreshing to me. And I just want you to know, I appreciate it, because that takes a lot for you, because I know how much tax increase is hard for you. And it's hard for all of us, but it is especially hard for you. And I want you to know, that is absolutely amazing to me, and I appreciate that your willingness and that commitment. Thank you very much.
thank you for that, but.
I replied that.
I'm sorry, Chief Wynn was trying to.
Oh, yeah,
Well, I
I'm
feel
sorry,
like the
go.
opportunity's lost now.
I'm sorry.
We talked too long.
No, that's okay. So, you know, will it have an impact? I think it's something versus nothing. I think where the impact is gonna be the most significant are these conversations having the tone that they're carrying. And, you know, we're being watched, right? And so when we talk about culture, you know, if you don't do this, I'm gonna be replaced with people who can't get jobs anywhere else but here. And that will absolutely decimate culture.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing is too, is, you know, we have to give our employees the benefit of the doubt, right? There are gonna be some people that are gonna leave, this is not gonna fix. I bet there's probably quite a few that are on the fringe and are just watching, and they're willing to wait. And, you know, in our department, we put a lot of value in the transparency, not because, you know, we're trying to hide the ball, we don't want our employees knowing why we're making decisions or not. They can be told no. They just wanna know why.
Yep.
Right? And so is 2.5% gonna move the needle? Not likely. But what is the message we're trying to send? We're being transparent, we're trying to be unified, right? They can take the 2.5% and they will likely, a lot will probably wait because they're being kept in the loop and they're learning the why. And I think as long as that continues, they'll continue to watch and wait. So that's,
I appreciate that feedback. I think that's important to remember too, like, and I think that's kind of what the whole purpose of this was, right? Is that make sure we're on the same page, and we may have differences of opinion in the future of how to make the wages work out or whatever. But that that all of us are committed to fixing this problem, I guess, is what. And
Better or worse?
Yeah.
Within our vested power.
Right,
There are
within our
outside
vested power,
forces.
but yeah, and I think, like, I think you were right, what Brandon said, like, we can't control what happens after that point, but yeah, that cause I do think we serve our citizens best when we fix this problem.
Chief Williams, you mentioned, negotiation, and I wanna hear more about that.
I'm just asking for the candidate picked up, let's commit. And I know the citizens have a say on that. And then, but that's the other risk. You want to raise taxes, there's now a referendum. You get to hear what they want to say. Now we get to tell them what we can't provide. So that's what I'm saying, is I say, if you're not wanting to do this, then I sure as heck want to see that, let's start committing, and how you're gonna commit to that. What is it?
Does it look like for you?
I think it's this year to year now, it's a plan. It's the council, to me, and he's military, we have these missions who drive everything we do. It surrounds what we want to do. So the council will say, of course, we want good services. I think most of the residents do that. I mean, I can't speak for them. They'll have their opportunity to speak, but I would inherently think like when an ambulance shows up with a fire truck, he wants to do a good job. You want to get there quickly. You want your water. I mean, I could go that's what they want. You gotta give us a path. You gotta give us a way to do that. And that's what I'm saying is then when I say commitment, I mean, Brian, you come into my office too. I kept that a secret. But it's the other end of it, right? It is, we recognize, we're all taxpayers, we recognize it. So it's that, I think, from what I've heard from some residents, is there wasn't enough transparency, but that's an area of improvement. Like, where is it going? But that's what I'm saying. We have to commit to where we want to go, the mission. And then that's our guiding principle. Whoever comes in, in the police and fire, like, a new individual comes in, new firefighter, they know the mission, and we're all on the same team. But with new council members who come in and out, I think that has been lost over the time. Maybe that's why at least what I hear from firefighters, it's been consistently, we operate in crisis mode. Politically, it's easier when the tires are falling out to replace the tires, or maybe some preventative maintenance, like we've talked about, smaller increases should have been done. But I also don't want to, I think it's irresponsible of me to throw other council members from the past under the bus who thought they were doing the right thing. And so I just want to make that clear. Like, I think they thought the right thing, but maybe we forgot what the mission was of the council to do. And that is right. I guess it's a balance of the residents and the departments, but it's been spoken. To me, a strong city is a commitment to the services that we provide and do them with excellence and provide that is serving your residents. It's just financially, how do we get there? And I just, my last comment is, I would have never brought up this Weber Fire District. Why are we even here? The fear is, and my guiding principle is my mission, my responsibility as the fire chief, and my passion of why I got into the service is to serve residents, people. That's what I like to do. Now, I'm not doing the job. I'm not on the truck. Now it's my job to make sure the firefighters can provide that service. 2, we have to have the men and women to do it. And that's been my goal ever since we started having the conversation. I'm trying to create options to help the city, the residents, so they can have that. So Brian, when you're having a heart attack, you get taken care of. Your life is saved. But now when we start to challenge the services, we can't do that. If it's 8 minutes, you're likely not here. That's what we're talking. And I'm no more important. I want to make that clear. What we do is no more important than these guys. I don't put myself above anybody, what we do. But that's what I'm saying, is that my role was to create some options. Do I want to keep Roy? Yes, please. But if we can't, option 2, option 3, we have to cut services.
I appreciate you say a plan. Cause, even when I was running, people would ask me, well, what are you, and I'm like, well, ideally, as a council, cause we work as a body, we could come up with a plan, a 2-year plan that maybe like puts us in a very, very positive direction. Because like you said, councils can change every 2 years. And I think that it sounds like from this meeting that we just had that everyone is committed to making that happen. And I think that is the key, is to have a plan. And I think as we start to move into the budget thing, that will be our plan, if that makes sense. And so acknowledging that today, what we're talking about is part of that plan now. So if that's what we're doing. So.
This. Typically, we know that there are times where cities, firefighters, we understand cities could go through a phase. But when you come out of the phase in a 2-3 year bad time, we know the economy in 2008 went bad. We all experienced it. But when you have the commit, you can come out of that knowing that they'll take care of the employees, our employees that we speak to. You have a problem, it's a crisis, we go through it. We know that coming out that we're gonna be okay. It's a phase, and that's what hasn't been there. It's been I'm now 5 years with losing on average so many firefighters. Now what's the plan? There isn't one. You don't know when. So the uncertainty, just put yourself in their place. What would you do?
I mean,
We've talked about, it. You would leave because your family, you're being forced to go out and find another option. Do they, no, you don't. You've committed yourself. You've been trained here. You know people. You work in a dynamic team. And now this sounds maybe harsh, we're failing them. We're underfunding these services. So what do? The plan and the mission helps you to overcome that. If you've got a plan and you stick with it.
Do you think, yeah, I think the planning elements, but what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, the other thing that I think that we can do better as, is transparency
Mm.
with the public, because nobody wants to be treated like they're dumb. And, I mean, we do all the boring talking with everybody, and so we're supposed to bring them something that they can make an easier decision on. And so the open discussions that we have like this, I think are good, and for the public to be able to see them and try to make it as open as possible. And that's why I think it's gonna be good when we do talk about in the future with the fire department type of stuff, having open houses and that. And I want to continue that clarity with the public, because they're not, I think when they understand that, hey, this is what the real situation is, there aren't closets full of money anywhere that we've been able to find. You know, I've kind of looked around and I haven't found any.
Wouldn't that be
And
nice?
so, just giving them the respect that, hey, this is really what it is. And you can say I'm lying because I'm a politician now or whatever. I've been one I don't know, 2 months, I guess. But, I think it's on us to also try to be as clear as we can with the public, so that they can, if something does happen, say a referendum, whatnot, then at least they have the information as best as they know it to make that decision. And now it's out of my hands, and I feel more comfortable about that, because now the public's voting on it too. So I'm feeling less and less risk now, the more that I talk about it and more I'm thinking about it and talking out loud.
Right.
So,
I just feel that that's after the fact, after the elections and the more people I talk to about the 28% tax increase. They're like, I wish I would have had more information because I just saw the signs and voted, you know? And they're like, but if I would have known where all that 28% was going, then I probably would have voted different. But I just think that's what Jason's saying. We just have to be more transparent, and they have to just know, you know, everything, have open houses, more discussions, more public, you know, I don't know how.
before we get to the point where we have to do the truth and taxation
Yep.
meeting, where we
Yeah.
actually have an open house about
Right.
it before we get to that meeting and say, hey guys, public, this is what
Yeah,
we got.
yeah.
This is the problem
Right.
we've got to try to figure
Exactly.
out. And if you've got some ideas, you write it down on this paper, or whatever, I mean, because we work for you.
Yeah, cause that was
And
the
you-
problem. Everybody
Yep.
didn't want a tax increase, but they want everything to stay the same, but they didn't have a solution for it, you know.
And
the
they
solution.
still may not have a solution, but I think that
Right.
that them knowing more that, hey,
Right,
we're
I
not,
think so too.
we're trying to do them right. We're not trying to do them dirty. So
But I
if they
didn't,
see that.
if anybody
they're
would go into the
willing
caucus,
to go.
cause we said we'd only have this go till 5:30 because of the Republican
Uh-oh.
caucus.
Well, it doesn't start till 7.
Oh, I
Doesn't
thought
start
we
till
said
7.
we would only go at 5:30 cause it started at 6.
Registrations, that's it.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
okay.
it starts at 7.
Okay, I thought we said 5:30.
I think this is very important. I mean, you know, and I think we're getting close, but I do
Well, I
think.
know, I just didn't want anyone to not be
Sure,
able to
I
get
appreciate
to
you-
where they were
yeah,
going,
I
so I
appreciate
thought
you
it
bringing
started
that
at
up.
6, so. So I think this has been great discussions,
yeah,
you
thank
know,
you.
something that, thank you for Alexis for, you know, having us do this, and I think it shows all the department heads that this council wants to work together and keep this city as one and get the wages up the best that we can, maybe, you know, a 2-year plan or, you know, obviously we do it in 1 year, the taxes would be probably astronomically high. And, but we have, you know, Amber is really smart and Matt's right there with her and they kind of trying to keep us on the straight and narrow path of like, are you crazy? You can't do that. And so I just feel with all of us working together for the same goal and let, you know, all the, employees know that I think it just helps morale so much if you can give them something that they have a little bit of hope. And so, I think that this meeting, if they're listening to this today, that hopefully it is, they're like, okay, I feel a little hope, you know, in the discussions that were made, and I feel that maybe I can hang in there for, you know, to see what the future brings in the next few months of what we can come up with, and I just think this has been a really good idea for us to have this tonight, and anybody else have anything else to say before we ask for an adjournment?
I think I've said enough.
So,
I kind of wanted to, I guess, to Chief Williams' point about a plan. I'm feeling a little empty-handed leaving, only because we've talked about this plan and then not said it. And that is talking about the message. I feel like that's a scary message. I don't want to be sending is that, yeah, we're gonna do this plan, and then we leave without a plan. Not that we can have the whole plan.
Yeah.
Admittedly, but I feel like I don't know.
Well, I think would planning another work session about budgeting, starting that, would that help you feel?
I mean, the thing is that built in is already part of the plan, which is we have to talk about taxes. That's
Yeah.
like built in, like we're gonna have that meeting.
Right.
Like that's already gonna happen.
Well, and we need to have one about Weaver Fire.
Well, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, those two
So
things
they're
go
kind of
into the plan.
Yeah, yeah. So these are,
Can I give a suggestion?
yeah, please.
I was just gonna say, you already have another step in the plan with the wage committee that is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that too
Working
is another
together,
part of the
so
plan.
they're-
So,
yeah.
I
you've
think,
got-
I think it's important, we've talked about this. Let the residents decide what they want. That will help you plan. If they decide we don't want to pay taxes for these services at this level, what's the consequence of us not doing that? Create a town hall meeting and get as much as, obviously you gotta promote it. That's your opportunity. To me, they should be part of the plan.
Yeah.
If they want these services, I think you're gonna see some, maybe a different change if taxes do have to raise, because it's based upon their needs and what they want. They're the driving force. It's the residents who we all serve. If they don't want these, then that changes the plan.
Yeah.
It changes the budget, it changes the taxes. So I think you gotta get some really good input. We're short on time to get that accomplished. But to me, there's a lot of things to be considered. I think the residents need to be a part of it. That would be my suggestion.
yeah, right, and I feel the town hall meeting, like, we don't wanna be a panel with everybody coming up one at a time, asking us a question. We want more like open house forum, don't we, Matt, to where they can go around and talk to everybody and have more individual conversations, since, cause you'd have a line clear out the city door, people wanting to come up and talk, and then we'd have time limit on it, and that way, if it's more open house, where everyone can just go around and ask questions, isn't that kind of what we had in mind?
I think that's what Pete's on the council.
Cons, I think, to
I
both.
think that's what we said, yeah, there's pros and cons to both,
In
but
regards to
start
your
with that.
comment, Alexis, I was wondering, you know, maybe part of that plan is just to have a tiny bit more knowledge, maybe is what you're thinking, like, what are we doing next? And I don't know if this is out of the ballpark, but last year, when we talked about raising wages 1%, do you remember? Because I can't remember, what was that amount when we averaged out a 1% tax? And I didn't bring that folder of my notes, because I think that gives us an idea. If we know that raising wages 1% is about this much money, you know, across, then if we know we're, you know, last year it was 14 or so percent, or if we know if we're getting further behind, that gives us a little bit of information and understanding as we work on the plan. Is that kind of what you're thinking, is let's give us a little more information? Or maybe Amber, you can ask that, or?
I mean, I don't mean to be like, let's decide on a tax right now. That's not like what I'm saying. I'm just like, you know, what's the, I don't know. I like this. I'm liking pieces of a plan. We have the
Yeah.
wage study, that's part of the plan.
Yeah.
We have, you know, I love this. Chief Williams is right. We ought to have a public something, you know, over this as well, and to all the things that we're talking about and just lay it all out. And I was gonna write down.
And I feel that rather than percentages, we need to have dollars.
That's the reality.
Talked about that,
We have. to
because
reality.
like 28% was gonna be $9 a month for my house payment, but I know I don't have the nicest house in Royce, so it could have been $12, $15 for somebody else. So no matter what our tax increase is gonna be, we need to have, okay, if your house is worth this much money, this is how much you're gonna be paying a month. And have all those, programs lined up for them to know if they don't make enough money to pay their taxes, then this is all the places they can go. And I think that's something that we need to have at the open house. Because, you know, if they, you know, a disabled vet or, if they make under a certain amount of money, we can have handouts and information there that we can say, because did Diane, how many, did you say that you knew how many people they helped?
I have that written down in my external brain.
Yeah.
It's another one of
So-
these.
Cause I think people, I mean,
My
working
external
at the
brain.
high school, I've had
It's a very
kids
hard-
office aides say to me, my mom can't afford you to do a tax increase. We barely make it now. And I said, does she know that there's help? And she said, no. And I said, well, and I know her mom, I said, we can get her that information, but I think just knowing when you hear 30% or 20% or whatever, that's why that one year when we did when we did our tax increase, I said, how much, Amber, is that a month on an average house in Roy? And I think people dollar wise see it more, like Diane will tell you 60 cents a day. Well, the other day when we were in our wage study, she goes, this is how much it would be a day. But, we don't want to bring up soft drinks or anything like that. So, but anyway, I just feel that the dollar value rather than the percentage, I don't know, it works in my head more. Percentages kind of freak people out, but if you're like, okay, my house is worth this
Well,
much.
it doesn't mean anything really, does it?
No.
Percentages, because,
Right.
you know, 180% of $2 versus, you know, yeah, it's different.
Okay, so I think plan.
Well, I feel like we have to, we're looking like right here and we need to know like, what's the goal?
Yeah.
What I would really love to know is what is the intention? How close to median do we intend to bring it up to? Intend to go all the way? No matter what? Do we intend to only do a certain tax increase percent? Is that the way we're looking at it? Are we looking at it by how, like by when? How long is this gonna take? Because it's just saying, okay, well, we're gonna do a wage study and we're gonna do a meeting and we're gonna set a tax rate. Those are all arbitrary.
Yeah.
And they don't really define the goal. And I don't know where is the appropriate place to talk about the council's goal for like is
Yeah,
is this a good place? Or we gotta do that in like a real meeting where you can vote on it? Or like, I don't know, but like, I would feel better knowing if this council intended to bring people up to median, or if they intended to go closer, or like what percentage of, you know what I mean? I would feel better knowing that.
Well, I think yeah, I think all those numbers we'd have to find out from Amber in order to bring them up, what percentage will we have to have and how much would that be a monthly and, we just wouldn't, yeah.
But, you know, that's a good point, because last year, the 28% was gonna bring it halfway to median, with the goal being this year, we would brought it up to median. Well, now we're a year behind, so does that mean really that plan was by this year to have it up to full median? And so, you know, I think that's a good point, because that gives us an actual target to work towards. We don't know what that number is, we don't know how much that is per household, but if we have a goal in the future that we're looking for, certainly a lot easier to get to it.
And that, I feel like would be a good communication to departments. Here is the date by which we will be at such percent of median. 100%, 80%, 40%, 20, like whatever. Then they'd be like,
We're gonna
oh,
need Some work sessions to
Yeah.
get there.
Like,
And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I think after the wage study is done, that we can set up some work sessions where we can get some of these, start hashing out the numbers, start hashing out what options that we would have to do, almost like looking at a bank loan. Like, we need to fix the wage and there's this big of a gap. How long is it gonna take us to get there if we do this many payments?
Right.
Kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I think we just need to get that, a work
Yeah,
session.
so I
done
think a
after
work
the wage
session is
study.
the next.
Did you
Yeah.
say that we have to, that, it's earlier this year too? May instead of June or?
Well, so we do present the budget to you in the first meeting in May. And my suggestion would probably be for me to give you that total amount to bring it to the median wage. And then we can have work sessions on where you want it to be. And so then when you go to vote on it in June, we set the ceiling on the tax increase.
Did you just, was that your suggestion? You can propose a a budget that would show us what median wage would be? That's just your suggestion, you wanna show us that?
Yeah, we've kind of talked about that in the week.
So I,
Oh, okay, good, good.
in May,
I
I
was just
will,
wondering where that thought came from, like why?
Well, also she has,
so in May, I have to give you a budget that is based on not having a tax increase. And then it will have a separate agenda that lists specifically what the tax increase would be for. And I can have that be that total amount that gets us to the median wage. And then if you decide you wanna do, you know, we're just gonna do 20% of that or whatever that is, you can back that number
That'd be very
down.
helpful to see, that would be great.
And then
That'd be
whenever
good.
we
May?
set that tax rate at, we have so many months to, we can say it can't ever go high, but we can
Yes.
definitely bring it
So
down.
then you can have work sessions after that, and when you vote in June, that's when you'll set the ceiling on the tax increase. And then you'll vote on the actual amount in August.
How do we decide on a ceiling? We just are like
You
deciding on a
vote,
ceiling?
you vote.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so we decide based on our budgets and we're looking at, we just set our own ceiling and we can go up to this.
so that's why Jason's saying we need work sessions before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you by chance remember what that was, what that number was, like how much it cost for a 1%?
It's around 175,000 per 1%.
For 1%?
Oh, wait, I guess
Wages? On
Um,
wages.
on wages, it's, so
Wages,
1% would get us about 107, or would give us,
Cost.
sorry, would cost us 175,000.
For, wage correction.
1%
Or 1%, basically.
Thank you very much.
For each percent.
Right.
Wage correction. Mhm.
175?
Yes.
Well,
I think before we adjourn, if we could, just get kind of a clarification from each council member of where we want to go with this.
I'll start on for it.
okay,
Well,
My direction we go, let's do it.
are you saying 2.5?
what?
Yeah, I think that's what he's asking is we need to tell him what. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
for? Okay. Just making sure that I
Right.
understood that.
and Brian, we know what your answer is.
It's a giveaway,
Yeah.
for it.
And I'm just gonna say the caveat is I do believe wages are still the most important goal here.
Yeah.
And that, you know, if I'm jumping in with both feet, it's because on the good faith that we really are working on wages and we're getting to that median wage. And so with that good faith effort, I'm gonna jump in the deep end of the pool and I'm saying yes on the 2.5% COLA to get us started.
And I'm gonna basically say ditto to exactly what she said. So, yeah, with knowing that everyone's kind of on board, then yes.
Just I want to clarify, Diane kind of summarized the feeling, but I want to get confirmation from the departments, that the real priority here is the wage disparity and the 2.5 is a step towards that. Are we in agreement on that?
Yeah, that's what I was understanding, so I'm glad you clarified it.
Because like that's what I think, but
Right.
And,
not
and
so-
hopefully, you know, this whole, event allows us to have that kind of team approach of council and staff and department heads. And so hopefully, you know, you feel good about what we're doing, so that way you can convey that to your, departments in that regards to that support. Because that's what we're really trying to do is support the citizens by supporting your department. So we appreciate that kind of collaboration.
Okay. So there. Unanimous vote for 2.5% COLA.
Thank you.
I think that's gonna help the employees hopefully know how much we want them to stay here and how much we appreciate everything they do for the city. And so, we have any further discussion? We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
Hey,
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Any
Oh, wait,
opposed?
you want me to say that?
Thank you, everybody said it.
All right, before I get after you. Okay, that's fair. Okay.